Why does FilmHub not specifically tell producers what needs to be corrected on QC so they can re-upload their content? I think what they're referring to here is, I know this has happened to me some in the early days. Like I would submit something and I would get a very
Yep.
generalized, like, basically a redundancy of the FAQ onto what was wrong with the QC.
Yep.
So like, what's up with the QC process?
Yeah, totally. Good question. So obviously this is a process that we're constantly evolving and constantly trying to improve, right? The ultimate thing that we see is, most of the time, I'll be honest, 80% of the 80 to 95% of the errors that we see from filmmakers is because they simply haven't read our requirements. Like it's ultimately the number one issue. And so, at its core, it really comes down to making sure you read the requirements. They're actually very detailed on our help center. Like our team puts a lot of effort into them. And, and so it's one thing I always recommend our filmmakers. If you're, concerned about meeting requirements, read them. It's like it's the simple basic piece.
Right.
And then in terms of providing exact details, right? We're reviewing lots of titles, right? Like it's like, providing that extra, level of detail, can sometimes, take away from reviewing somebody else's title. And so, we're, obviously want to make that better and provide more detail. But right now, it's just like, that's kind of the level of detail we're able to provide. We're trying to go through, fairly quickly. And don't forget, this is a service that, typically when you work with like an aggregator or an encoding house or traditional methods, they charge you $1,000 plus to do this, right? We're providing this as a free service. That's pretty game changing, right? So, realize that you're getting something for free here. We're making sure that your title is actually capable of being delivered to these streaming services. So, take a little bit of time, do the work to read the requirements, check your videos. When we made this announcement yesterday, I was preparing for make this announcement yesterday, we were recording and editing our video in DaVinci. And, it was kind of fun because we were like, oh, this is like back to like actually like, making films here. And, but it was at the same time, we were like going through is like, realizing it's like, it's really, you have to read documentation. You have to apply that thing, like be a master of your craft, right? Like, don't try and just slap something together. Like, this is your work. This is your baby. It's like really just important that you actually go in and work on the technical details. It shows. It really does. Like it, if you don't do the extra work, people will see that immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're just, if you were more lax on the QC and, say you were, just submitting to some platforms blindly, you'd just be getting rejected anyway.
Completely. You get rejected. And also, like, don't forget, like, one of the reasons that streaming channels love working with FilmHub and one of the reasons why we are able to get so many films up on streaming services is they believe and they see that we are, technically savvy. We are not and they complain all the time about standard traditional distribution. Like, oh, the assets weren't QC'd. I didn't receive the right frame rate, all this stuff. Like, this is stuff that traditional distributors like don't honestly think about and they don't talk about. And it leads to films not getting picked up by streaming services on the back end. They probably don't tell you about it, but that happens a lot. We have had, number of streaming services that have come to us saying like, hey, we're now forcing XYZ distributor to work through FilmHub because they can't actually deliver. This is why, this is one of the things that's like super important. We're providing you a service here to make sure your assets are correct. But we need to work with you on that. It takes that effort.
Right. Yeah. And I know even from personally, you have to understand when you said the thing about, hey, this is a free service that we're providing, that really clicked for me. I'm like, oh my God, that's true. Cause yeah, I mean, I remember back in the day submitting QC for distribution and, paying anywhere from, $600 to $2,000 a pop. And yeah, sure. You got these like, 2-page detailed reports, but the whole process took
Yeah.
a couple weeks where
Yeah.
you guys burn over in a couple of days sometimes.
Yeah. And it's actually working on getting even faster. That team is growing significantly, and we're investing heavily into, making sure that happens even faster for our filmmakers.
Right. And I don't want to stay on QC forever, but I did have one other thing just about the process that I was curious about.
Yeah.
So when you get a title, I'm assuming you start with the art and then you go to the movie. Is there a...
Yeah, we do. We do basically, we all want to do kind of like a quick, just once over, right? Of like, there's a lot of times where we see like blatantly that, or there's major issues, right? And, it's like clearly the filmmaker did no efforts to look at it. You know, we get stretched and squeezed images, etc.
Right,
And it's
right.
like, okay, folks, come on, like take some pride in your work, right? Like that's not going to look good showing up on a big screen. And like, I mean, if I showed you some of the stuff we see on a daily basis, you would be like, what is this filmmaker thinking? You know, and so like we do kind of do some like quick broad strokes, because guess what? If like you have stretched and squeezed images that we can't fix, there's no sense in us, you know, continuing to review. It's like, we can't even, that's not even going to work, you know?
Right.
And so, you know, so we do, you know, make sure that we review things in order of, you know, kind of the needs.